You're listening to Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions on product and business strategy. And now, here's your host, Bob Caparelli.
Welcome to another episode of Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions about product and business strategy. Real questions from real people in real companies just like yours. Welcome back, strategy creators. It's great to have you back here on another episode. We have another great question following our standard format of user-submitted questions. We have, as I said in previous episodes, a pile of them still to get to, more coming in all the time. So we'll get right to this one. So today's question is, Dear Strategy, what are the strategies that a tech product manager can use to predict competitive movements, innovations, and/or changes in business strategy? So what I think is interesting about this question is that it is specifically geared towards a tech product manager, somebody who works in the technology space. Now, you can argue that all of us now work in the technology space, right? Every product or nearly every product has some technology component to it. And if it doesn't, there's probably something that you're behind in. But I think here, I'm going to make the assumption that this person is really asking more from the standpoint of a software product manager, someone who's in the traditional software space, and really wants to understand kind of how can you keep up with the competition. And the underlying implication of the question, which I think would be very accurate, is that the technology space moves really fast, right? Faster than maybe you can even keep up with. So if you're spending all of your time developing out new features and, let's say they're working in an agile process, which a lot of technology companies are working in an agile process. Those of you who do not know what an agile development process is, it's basically an iterative process that's used to quickly develop features in the software, usually in the software space. And features are released on a 2 to 4 week kind of a cadence, sometimes shorter, sometimes longer. But the idea is to keep up with the marketplace, keep up with what the consumers ultimately are looking for, and to some extent keep up with the competition. So if you're in that kind of process and you're spending a lot of time focusing on customer needs, which is what that process focuses on, and focusing on, how customers are reacting to the releases that you're doing, how do you go ahead and then keep up with what the competition is doing? Because they're probably working on the same stuff that you're working on, which is really the crux of the answer here. And I think, especially in the technology space, it's an assumption that I think you have to kind of go on, right? Is that the other competitors are hearing the same stuff. Now, let's go back to a traditional, tangible product kind of a development process, which is still very, very, dominant in many companies. But if you're making something like something you can touch and feel in your hands, right? Maybe something that's in the industrial space, maybe that's something that is a longer type life cycle. And those kinds of products might have 20, 30-year life cycles, right? So the development process usually takes longer, maybe from anywhere from a year to 2 years sometimes to develop a product like that. And you're basically collecting a bunch of features and requirements, and you're developing that into a product. You put it into the marketplace and it's out there for a while. So the point is that it's slower, right? It's a slower kind of a process. And so for competitors to keep up with you or to catch up with what you're doing, they have to go through their own year or 2 year development process. And so maybe they don't release a product that catches up to yours for some months or years in some cases, right? So that's the way that, let's say, traditional product manager to traditional product development would go. Well, the reason that's important to distinguish is because you can be out in the marketplace for some period of time with a product without a competitor catching up, right? And that will allow you to enjoy, assuming that you've put out a good product and a product that customers want, that will allow you to enjoy some success with that product before competitors can catch up with you. Well, now fast forward that to a software environment where you're releasing new features and new requirements every 2 to 4 weeks. You're doing that by getting customer feedback, talking to customers, seeing what they want, and then incorporating that into your next release. Well, guess what? Any of the competitors that you have that have similar products are doing the exact same thing. And so just as soon as you can put out something that's brand new and, meets a customer requirement, so can they. And there's not going to be that kind of cushion, if we want to call it that, that you'll have to enjoy the success of your special feature, unless you have something that's patentable or so forth, which is quite honestly difficult in the software space. So that's kind of the dilemma here is how do you know and how do you keep up? The other thing that I would say, and this is almost just from a pure consumer standpoint, I have a small business and I just launched Strategy Generation Company, which also sponsors this show and puts on this show. And I can tell you that as a small business owner, I'm very into technology and I want to use the current technology, whatever systems are available to me, whether that's to do, social media or accounting or automated marketing or whatever else. And my business uses any number of systems, probably in the neighborhood of 20 different systems, right? And one of the biggest challenges I had in starting the business is for any problem that I needed to have solved, there were probably no less than 10 different options for me to choose from as far as a piece of software or cloud-based solution that would solve my problem. So just take marketing automation. I mean, there's literally 50 different programs that do very similar things, right? And you could say that for any of the business systems that most small businesses have. And I would spend sometimes weeks going through and trialing and seeing which solution was the best and so forth for my particular needs. And it was a harrowing experience in some cases. All that to say, I have yet to run across a software product that it's the only product that does what I needed to do, right? So the point is that most of this technology space is pretty crowded, right? And so there are a lot of competitors. Well, the reason that I think is important to the answer that I want to give to this question is that you have to think about not only the product features that you're using to distinguish yourself from the competitors, but also the overall experience. And I would almost say more so the overall experience, because on a feature to feature basis, many of these products are going to be the same, right? And if you're making that type of product, you're probably included in that. You might not be coming out with something that's breakthrough different. Now, you might improve upon something that somebody else did. You might take something that was a pain point that someone couldn't get through another competitor's product and incorporate it into your release. And that's all great. But guess what? Your competitors are then going to catch up and do the same thing eventually, if not very quickly. So, using kind of features as the differentiator, in some cases that will work, but I don't know that that's the whole point, right? I don't know if that's the whole scenario. I think more so, you have to look at your branding. You have to look at your messaging. You have to look at how you're servicing your customers. You have to look at the user interface and the overall experience that you're getting. How modern is your interface? How easy is it to use? Those are more or less the things that I think technology customers are basing a lot of their decisions on. Now, of course, you have to have that baseline of features that will allow you to enter the race. But once you're there, a lot of what differentiates you is how well you resonate with your customer base. And I will tell you that there's not always a right or wrong to that. When I was choosing my marketing automation platform, features, there were some that didn't do what I needed to do. So those came out of the running. But then I was still left with many, many different options. And I went towards a combination of, yes, price in some case, right? But that wasn't my first decision-making, tool. Mostly I went with the package that resonated most with me, right? Did the product do what I needed it to do in the way that I needed it to do? Did it think like me? I know that sounds, strange, but that's the way that I was making my decision. When I looked at the interface, when I used the interface, was it comfortable for me? Was it something that was attractive to me? And did the workflow match the way that I think? Well, all of that comes down to understanding what audience you want to go after, really understanding the personas of that audience. What's important to them? Who are they? What do they care about? And designing your solution so that you're really going after that persona, right? Now, this is hard because a lot of companies want to be everything to everyone. They want to get as much market share as possible. But I'm a firm believer, especially when you have a lot of products that do the same thing that yours does, if you can actually connect with a subsegment of the market that you really want to go after, you'll win there, right? And I think that's one of the most important things you could do. Well, how does that all come back to the answer to the question? The reason is because if you're focusing your competitive analysis on features, I believe it's a race to the bottom, right? I mean, okay, you have to make sure that you're doing what they're doing to some extent to make sure that you're entering the race, but you're going to get most of that feedback from your customers, right? They're probably doing the same things that you're doing if you're talking to your customers. I think the better thing you could spend your time doing is really looking at your competition with respect to who are they going to appeal to as far as their user interface, the culture they're trying to transmit, right? The types of customers they're trying to go after. And how can you position yourself with respect to that? What that means is that that's not going to be an everyday competitive analysis, right? That's not something you have to be online every single day to do. You could do that and update it and refresh it on a quarterly basis or even an annual basis in some cases, assuming things don't change that much. And I'm not saying that don't look at your competitors and don't track their movements. What I am saying, though, is if you make that a part of your everyday routine, you might chase them to try and be the same as them. And that's not going to do any good for you. Do a bigger picture analysis on your competitors. Look at who they are and who they're appealing to. Look at the kind of culture that they're trying to set and see how you want to compare it to that. Then use that to put a strategy together for how you want to position to the marketplace. If you can find a subsegment of the market that isn't being spoken to directly, there's a huge opportunity for you. And if that matches the culture of your business, that's only going to be a win. And that stuff doesn't change every single day. So that's where I would go with this, right? Is yes, looking at the strategies of your competitors is important. Don't do it on an everyday basis. Don't do it just on a feature basis. Look at the bigger picture. Look at how they're positioned. Look at the personas they're going after and see if there is a strategic opportunity for you to go after somebody just a little bit different or go after someone just a little bit differently. So if you have a question that you want to be submitted to be featured on the show, please visit us at our website, dearstrategy.net. .com also works. You can go to either one of those. There's an Ask a Question link at the top menu, and you can go ahead and do that and send us a question. We'll be happy to answer it on the show. Also, go visit the website of our sponsor and the company that I founded, Strategy Generation Company. We offer strategy training and workshops and all kinds of great things for you to take advantage of. So please go out there. We're building a whole online course structure as well, which should be available here shortly, maybe within a few months or so. But we hope you'll go and stay current with that website as well. And of course, if you are a Facebook user, go check out our Facebook group. It's called We Are Strategy Creators, and I'm trying to build that up. I can't say that it's absolutely reaming with people at this point. I'm actually holding a few people who have requested membership because I want to build the community first. I don't know if that's smart or not, but that's what I'm doing. But go check it out and see if that's a place that you want to share some ideas and thoughts and get some questions answered as well. So while you're doing all that, don't forget to make time for the plan, and we'll see you back here on another episode of Dear Strategy. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for listening to Dear Strategy with Bob Caparelli. To learn more or to submit a question to be featured on our show, please visit us at dearstrategy.net.